Good morning to you once again. Thank you so much for being with us on Morning at NTV in the final band of February 2023. It is the interesting leap year. Now, we are going to be kick-starting off our conversations this morning by looking at the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda and what its mandate is here in Uganda and how it's meant to protect you in case of your financial institutions' closure or failure to actually uphold what is required of them by the Bank of Uganda, which governs the economics of this country. My name is Priscilla Regina Naloga, and we're going to be looking into understanding the role of the Deposit Protection Fund. Now, ever wondered how safe your money is in the bank when you put it there? Who's supposed to be protecting it? Is it the bank, or is there someone else that ensures that the bank takes good care of your money? Banks and other financial institutions have security systems. They also do have technology nowadays to keep your money safe. When banks face difficulties and become unable to service their obligations to you as their customer and they fall due, their creditors, including depositors, risk suffering the loss of their money. And I know a few people have experienced that in the most recent decade. Whereas banks rely on customer deposits that can be withdrawn at little or no notice, they are exposed to a number of risks as well. In managing these risks world all over, deposit insurance systems are established primarily to protect depositors of regulated financial institutions to ensure viability of the financial sector and also the economy. Now, in our discussion this morning, we're going to be looking at the role and mandate of the Deposit Protection Fund and how deposits in contributing institutions are protected with us here in Uganda. I'm joined by the Chief Executive Officer for the Deposit Protection Fund, and that is Mrs. Julia Claire Olima Oyat. Good morning to you, Julia.
Good morning, Priscilla, and good morning, viewers.
Okay, so let's first talk about the Deposit Protection Fund. It sounds like an alien word for some people who are banking with financial institutions today. So give us a preamble. What is it about? When was it established? And for what mandate does it exist?
Okay, thank you, Priscilla. The Deposit Protection Fund was founded in 2016 when the Financial Institutions Act was amended. So when it was created, it became a legal entity with its own board and management team. But before that, the fund existed as an account in the Bank of Uganda, where the contributing institutions, those are the institutions that are regulated and licensed by the Bank of Uganda, used to contribute premiums. After then, the government decided that we needed a more efficient deposit protection system in the country, and they decided that it's now going to be called the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, which is a legal entity on its own, separate and distinct from the Bank of Uganda, although we work together with the Bank of Uganda. And so that is where we are with the Deposit Protection Fund. Currently, we sit at Lodell, on Lodell Road, AHA Towers, outside the Bank of Uganda premises, although we started by being within the Bank of Uganda. So that is the origin of the Deposit Protection Fund. In terms of the mandate, the Deposit Protection Fund comes in to pay you a certain amount, which is currently 10 million, in that unlikely event that your bank is closed by the Bank of Uganda. And the reason we say unlikely event is that the Bank of Uganda looks at other ways of resolving a financial institution before coming to the Deposit Protection Fund. So by the time they come to the Deposit Protection Fund, it means they've looked at all other mechanisms, and many times they look at the purchase and assumption transactions or acquisitions where the depositor will continue to access all their money, and it's not only limited to the 10 million, and that is the preferred option. However, if the Bank of Uganda finds that they are finding it hard to get an interested party to buy the bank or an interested other institution to absorb the deposits, then they have nothing else to do but to say, let's close the bank. But when they say close the bank, you will not lose all your money. At least you'll get immediately 10 million. The rest of the money above the 10 million you'll get when the institution is liquidated, and depending on the proceeds, you'll still get the balance. So that is the Deposit Protection Fund. instilling confidence in the public, that bank with confidence. If anything happens, you have up to 10 million. And by the way, Priscilla, at that 10 million, we're covering 98% of the depositors in the country. Okay. So some of us might think it's little, but it's really sufficient for deposit protection.
Okay. I've heard you making references to regulated contributing institutions.
Yes.
For one who doesn't really understand the terminology, how do they get to know that their financial institution is actually regulated?
Yeah. Priscilla, to know if your financial institution is regulated, usually in the banking hall of your respective financial institutions, there should be a license which has been issued by the Bank of Uganda, saying that it is licensed by the Bank of Uganda. And on top of that, we usually have posters indicating that it's also protected by the Deposit Protection Fund. Now, as long as that institution is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Uganda, the deposit protection is given automatically. So customers don't have to pay additional money to the Deposit Protection Fund. Money, premiums are paid by their contributing institutions to us. And I'd like to assure the public that the contributing institutions are all paying their premiums. And in that unlikely event that I have talked about, they will be protected up to the 10 million shillings.
Okay, so speaking of protection, I'm in my bank, it's facing closure, and there's no other bank to buy it out. Yes. So they may end up, suffering because of that. So who is covered by that fund? That's one. And then what is the cover limit that you give as the fund? And how would a depositor actually get to know that theirs is covered and then more so claim their cover?
Okay, so you have 4 questions there. I might skip some, but
I will remind you.
Yeah, in case I skip any, you can remind me. So the depositor, first of all, knows that they are covered as long as they are banking with an institution that is regulated by the Bank of Uganda. So automatically, you know that you're covered and you don't have to pay anything additional. The limit that we pay you up to is 10 million, but that 10 million is per customer. So if you're a customer in a bank and you have 2 accounts, let's say, and when we add up those 2 accounts, it comes to 20 million, we would pay you 10 million. So the deposit insurance is given per depositor, not per bank account that you have.
So with my 3 accounts, I'm still going to, and me being the same depositor, I'm still going to get 10 million.
You still get, you still get the 10 million. But we always encourage those depositors who have much more than the 10 million. We encourage them to know their bank, because traditionally deposit protection is given to protect those who are small depositors, uninformed depositors, really unsophisticated depositors. But you, Priscilla, who is educated, you are informed, you have so many channels of getting information about the performance of your bank. You should be banking in a bank that you feel is financially sound. Yes, because most of the banking sector generally is sound, but you cannot rule out the fact that there might be one weak link in the sector. So just in case the small depositor happen to deposit with that bank, at least they'll be paid all their money. But you who has more, know your bank and follow its performance, but from credible sources, not from rumors, because rumors generally can bring down a whole financial sector. And we always encourage our viewers not to listen to rumors. Go to the websites. The Bank of Uganda publishes financial information about institutions on a yearly basis. Take time to read the performance of your financial institution, analyze it, and feel confident. If you're not confident for any reason, then you make certain decisions for yourself. Yes.
Okay. Now, in regards to the cash out, if we look at statistics, by 2022 estimated that we had about 14 million accounts, depositors in that regard. Now, if you have about 2% of those that have about 10 million Ugandan shillings sitting on their accounts as we speak, then what remains of the 98% of the Ugandans who averagely can have about up to 1 million Ugandan shillings. So when the unlikelihood happens for their bank account to close, how do you balance that out?
Okay, so the 98% who have less than 10 million, are the happiest because we shall pay them all their money. The ones who will be a little bit uncomfortable are the 2% who have above the 10 million, and those are the ones we are encouraging that know your bank. This is an age where there's a lot of information out there. Use credible sources and track the performance of your bank and be confident about where you're banking. But for those who have below the 10 million, they should continue banking with confidence, because if anything happens, we'll pay them. Although there's a disclaimer to that, is that the DPF would like to pay all of us very fast, but we can't pay fast if we don't have your details. And I'm sure you might want to ask more about that, but we shall touch on that when we reach there.
All right, so just so our audience is clear with it, if I have more than 10 million, you're going to pay me up to 10 million.
10 million,
and then the balance,
you'll wait for liquidation.
You wait for liquidation.
Yes,
okay, that's a tough one for which you don't have control over. Now let's look at loans. For example, at the time of my bank closing, I am holding a loan with that bank. How do you handle that?
Yes, so if you have a loan and it is performing, that's okay. You'll continue servicing that loan with the liquidator. Now, if you have a loan and it is non-performing, that one we shall offset it from the deposits that you had in the bank and pay you less, so we recover. Okay. Our first intention is to recover that loan. It is non-performing, so we need to be able to have it back before we can pay you any balance. So we encourage the depositors, if you have loans, service them so that in that unlikely event we don't have to offset it from your deposits. Okay.
Now we have so many loans that have come out because of COVID-19. Bank of Uganda is trying to help different sectors resuscitate themselves so that they can together up the economy presently. So that means that there's a lot of money that's going invested into loans. Now those usually are the 10 million and above that we also take on millions in terms of the loans that they're taking on. What's the application in closure?
The application in closure remains the same. That if they had non-performing loans, we would still recover that from their deposit if they have a deposit in that same institution. So it still applies, because remember that those people who took the loans and did not pay have also contributed to the downfall of that institution. And then you have the depositor, who didn't have a loan, and you put your money there. We have to try and protect your interests first and recover as much as we can from the process, so that we can be able to have our kitty full to be able to pay you in time.
Okay.
Yes.
Priscilla Naroga has multiple accounts in Bank X. She has a joint account also in another Bank X, so in the same bank for that matter. So when you are paying out, are you paying Priscilla Naroga, the depositor, or the account that I have?
Okay, so if you have maybe 3 personal accounts, we amalgamate those together and we'll give you up to 10 million. But if maybe you and a friend have a joint account, that is a separate account in legal terms, and so that will be insured up to the 10 million also. So we'll give you 10 million here and 10 million here, assuming that you had 10 million both sides. Yes.
Okay.
So they'll be separate. The joint account is separate from the individual accounts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the financial sector has also grown leaps and bounds. There's now mobile money when it comes to accounts, and you also do have circles that are increasing day and night. When it comes to the Deposit Protection Fund, do you cover these in terms of remuneration, in terms of paying them out in case of anything that happens to maybe the mobile money sector players, or when it comes to circles?
Okay, for mobile money, because the mobile money industry has grown tremendously, the government saw it fit to provide for a protection mechanism for the mobile money owners, and that doesn't sit within the Deposit Protection Fund, but it sits within the National Payment Systems Act, so that if a bank collapses, the money that is there at the time the bank collapses is used first and foremost to pay the depositors before any other creditor is paid. And so the mobile money users should also use their mobile money account with confidence, knowing that in case of anything there's a mechanism to pay them fully, but they don't fall under the Deposit Protection Fund. When it comes to SACCOs, there is a current move to have the large SACCOs come to the Bank of Uganda to be regulated and licensed by the Bank of Uganda. And when that happens, they will automatically get the deposit protection deposit protection that we have at the DPF. Then you would ask, then what happens to those that are the smaller SACCOs? The smaller SACCOs are regulated by Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority, and I'm informed that they're also in the process of trying to put in place a fund to protect that the depositors or the users of the small SACCO services. So all in all, the government is always looking at how to protect the depositors, especially those small, unsophisticated, uninformed depositors. And that you who are more informed and more sophisticated, you have to be knowledgeable and make the right financial decisions.
Okay, so you have talked about a roundtable that is considering the bigger SACCOs. What constitutes a bigger SACCO for that consideration to be under the Deposit Protection Fund?
Okay, I think they're going to look at, I'm not privy to the details, but I know they're going to be looking at, I think, the level of deposits that they have, the capital that is there, and that is going to qualify them to be the large SACCOs that would come into the Bank of Uganda. So that framework is still being fine-tuned, but for us, we are ready to take them on once they come on board. Yes. Okay,
trade is a big game player here in Ugandan's economy. You do have friends in Chikobo who have to move to different parts of the globe to be able to trade. Now they usually then set up dollar accounts, they set up euro accounts. Are these accounts covered when it comes to the eventuality that their bank has to close?
Okay, Priscilla, all the deposit accounts are covered regardless of the currency. The only thing is that if you have money in dollars, and unfortunately that unlikely event takes place, we would convert that into shillings at the closing rate of the Bank of Uganda the previous day before the closure and still pay you. So no one should feel or fear that their deposit is not protected because it's not denominated in Uganda shillings. It's still protected.
And the principle of up to 10% still also applies to the foreign accounts?
It still also applies.
Foreign currency accounts.
Foreign currency accounts, and it will still be per depositor. So if you have one foreign deposit account and one local account, we'll still convert those both into shillings and then use the cutoff of 10 million. But I'm assuming that people who have foreign denominated accounts don't fall within the unsophisticated, uninformed small depositors, so they should be making wise decisions also.
So in the unlikelihood that the bank has to close, there's depositors on there that maybe their information is not so up to date. You do have those that have taken loans and some information could be missing or has not yet been updated at that time. What is your consideration in managing that missing information or necessary information for you to be able to then pay out to the depositor?
Okay, so at the Deposit Protection Fund, we're working very closely with your banks, your financial institutions, and asking them to regularly ask their depositors to update their records. I'm sure you must have received information, and I'm sure the bank asked for your national ID. And it's possible that they also ask for your alternative mode of payment. And I'm aware that some of the depositors get jittery when the banks ask for that alternative, but that is just to prepare for the unlikely event, so that if that event happens, we can pay you through your mobile money account. and you don't have to suffer making lines in front of banks trying to access your money. So please, we're urging the public, update your information with your contributing institutions, give them your national ID number, give them an alternative mode of payment. That can be your mobile money account, it can be also another bank account that you have, so that when that event happens, you relax and just wait for your money to come on your mobile phone, get that money and put it in another bank, because you know that you'll always be paid still very fast. And that is how we also contribute to that confidence building, that depositors know even if anything goes wrong, I will not get stranded. I'll still get my money in a short time. But the onus is on the depositors to update their records.
Okay.
Yes.
And in your closing, Max, what's your vote of confidence that you give to those that contribute to the financial sector in terms of depositors, what they should be doing to protect their money?
Okay, so depositors, first of all, should bank with confidence because the financial sector is being regulated by the Bank of Uganda. The Bank of Uganda many times has said that the sector is resilient. So depositors should bank with confidence. But the Deposit Protection Fund comes in that unlikely event, because we can't say everything is rosy. The world is not rosy. You'll always come across those challenging times. But that if that challenging event happens, the deposit protection is there to provide you with that protection. But you also have a responsibility to update your record so that we can pay you fast, and also encouraging those who are informed, those who are educated. Don't just take your money to any financial institution. Be confident about where you're taking your money. Get information from credible sources. We're also encouraging the public, do not listen to rumors. Get information from the credible sources. The Bank of Uganda has a lot of information. The websites of these banks have a lot of information. And let's avoid listening to social media rumors. The Bank A is going to close, Bank B is going to close. It is not healthy for the financial sector.
Okay. Thank you so much, Julia Claire Olima, who's the Executive Director with the Deposit Protection Fund. And of course, just to give you a vote of confidence, as of 3 weeks ago, their assets increased by 15% to 1.15 trillion Ugandan shillings. And as of December 2022, they were able to pay out 20.9 million accounts. And I believe that your account is among those. I hope that has been as informative